It's a warm day. Awn ni dracu yn y Godwig, yonder in the trees in the forest. That's better. We'll go a bit further into the trees. Pranam da, good afternoon. Some of you have wanted me to get out and about again. We'll see how this microphone works, okay? So this video is about words that are quite unique in Welsh. But I've not just selected random words, I've chosen words from 3 different categories to show you something that's really beautiful and unique about the Welsh language that people often just brush over. And that's the fact that Wales, very specifically, has been outside the main centres of prestige, forced to create its own prestige, at least for 2 long periods in its history, which were very formative. But first, I just want to talk about the journey up here. If you don't have a driver's license, maybe you shouldn't move to Wales. Just saying. I mean, I would have sorted that out first. And the driver's license process in this country, it's like they actively discourage you from getting a driver's license. In America, I would be driving around with a car up in the mountains or down in the gullies or whatever 6 months ago. It would have been sorted. But I'm still trying. So let's talk about this Welsh language. I'm going to compare Welsh with French, English, and German. And there's a specific reason why. I may throw in occasionally like Danish, Swedish, or Italian, Spanish, but there's a reason why I'm choosing English, German, and French. French represents a Roman imperial dialect that emerged eventually through the Franks. But mainly what I'm talking about here is the cultural sphere of the region between Germany and France, from which many of the settlers, or whatever you want to call them, came to create England. So these 3 languages have a cultural prestige heritage that's very similar to each other, whereas Welsh does not. So let's look at these 10 words, and I'll break these down into 3 categories, and then I'll go into the time periods and why I selected those words after. Right. The 10 words, but I'll have to go into the other languages over-recorded at home, but I've got the 10 words in Welsh here. So the first one is Atlantic. In Welsh, Iwerydd. In English, Atlantic, ocean. In German, Atlantischer Ozean. And in French, l'Océan Atlantique. Welsh is a bit different here, Mor Iwerydd. I just need to note that Iwerddon, which is Ireland, does not give the name to the Atlantic. The other way around. Ireland is literally like the ocean thing. That's kind of what it means. That thing in the ocean. That's what Ireland means in Welsh, basically. The others have this Greek root, and we don't. We'll go into that after. The next word. Music in English, die Musik in German, and Musik in Swedish, la musique. It's interesting though that in German, French, and Welsh, these are all feminine. Cerddant or cerddelen, harp music. This cerddoriaeth word came off of cerddor as well, meaning musician. I'll go into this in a bit, like the others, but it also suggests it's a bit older, that it had these attachments on after to create a sense of cultural prestige. League in English, die Liga in German, and Liga in Swedish, la Ligue in French, and Lega in Italian. Cynghrair in Welsh is quite distinctive. And you'll notice I put that in group A/B. It could have been quite earlier, but it definitely changed meaning later. Okay? Sport in English, der Sport in German, le Sport in French. But something is very peculiar about the Welsh one here, because chwaraeon is plural. It's not singular. That suggests very much, in my opinion, an older root. The fifth word is tywysog. Prince in English, der Prinz in German, though they do have another word for this, le Prince in French, and in Welsh, tywysog comes from tywys, to lead, like the Taoiseach in Ireland. The sixth word is our first one from group C, gorwel. Horizon in English, der Horizont in German, and very similar in Swedish, with the horizon in French. Gorwel is quite distinctive. Art in English, die Kunst in German, that's a bit different, but it's Konst in Swedish and Kunst in Danish. La in French, and el arte in Spanish. Kelv in Welsh is very different. Kelv. Now this means art, but it didn't used to. It was more like, sort of like cerdd. It meant like a craft, a skill. Kelv revel, the art of war. Okay? It's a very significant sense of refinement in learning ability. And this definitely comes into our language in category B. The next one is also category B, and there's a reason for this, which I will tell you. Gwyddbwyll is chess. Chess in English, das Schach in German, and Szachy, I don't know how to pronounce that quite right in Polish, but it's very similar. In French, les échecs. Les échecs. Gwyddbwyll, chess. This probably replaced an older game, but we don't know. In Welsh, it literally means wood intelligence or wood sense, wood meditation, meditation on these wooden pieces. It's a very thoughtful word for this game, isn't it? And completely different from the other major European languages. Evi is very different, and I think the Irish here is uva, but don't quote me on that. It's clearly a cognate of a pre-Roman epic that is very old. Bronze in English, die Bronze in German, Bronze in Swedish, le Bronze in French. Airplane in Welsh, awyren. Airplane in English, das Flugzeug in German, and Swedish, it's kind of like a cross between English and German. Flugplan and l'avion in French, l'aero in Italian, but don't quote my pronunciation on Italian. You can see those are all quite different, but again, this is a very modern invention, and a lot of it came of the age in which national identity was playing a part in the shaping of new words for all of those. Awyren. Now, there's a fellow named William Owen Pugh, which I'll get to in a minute, who invented a lot of words and created dictionaries, which very important fellow. But this word is in category C because of that. It meant originally balloon, like in the sky. You could still say that for it, but generally it means airplane. So you can see that Welsh, for words that would have been prestigious at certain key points in history, are very different. Now those 3 points are really 2.5. So you have the pre-Roman period, which would have given words like Evydd, bronze, and Iwerydd, Atlantic. They would have shifted a bit, but they still hold that core point. These are pre-Roman words, whereas the Celts on the continent even, their prestige culture for art, trade, commerce would have come from the Mediterranean. Ours would not have. We were an Atlantic-based culture. And it's quite remarkable that Welsh, as far as I know, is the only language on the Atlantic seaboard that has a word for Atlantic that's not from the Mediterranean. And we had that center as something that was very important to us. So it was so etched in our consciousness that we didn't change that when a new wave of prestige culture comes in. So category B, words like prince, the words for music, prince, art, chess. These are from the period after Rome in which we were competing kingdoms. And there's something very distinct about Wales in this age because the English, or who would become the English, the Saxons, the Franks, those peoples, they became centered in terms of prestige culture around the Holy Roman Empire and the Carolingian dynasty. We didn't. We had this Celtic Sea area communication system going on. We weren't so sucked into that world. And the proof of this is in the Carolingian script. We Welsh and the Irish did not adopt this Carolingian script as early as the English did. We were in a different cultural environment. The words for truly prestigious things, we created them ourselves from within our own culture. Yes, we took a bit from Saxon and Latin, absolutely. The earth is thundering. But we weren't looking toward the Rhineland at this point in our history for our royal fashions. Germany and France and parts of England most definitely were. And later Normandy. Not until after the Norman invasion did we truly switch our fashions and styles. And that's when our royalty almost switched to French. That's it. Now, league here. Cynghrair, this could be earlier. Like chwaraeon. Chwaraeon seems... It's related to the word for play, to play. Chwara. And this seems very much like guys out, just wrestling with each other and competing in feats of raw, brute strength, which would have been very much, I'm sure, like the Age of Bronze, all of that. I wouldn't have lasted very long. Just saying. But this Cynghrair bit could have come later because you had Cynghraria, leagues or confederations of kingdoms that would join together against others at certain points. Cynghraria, the verb. You see this in the Middle Ages. So I think this is one which it took a prestige word probably from an earlier root that was our own culture and then shifted it again within our own culture. Category C. There was a guy named Iolo Morgannwg, see my video on him, well, of his time period at least. He liked to invent and make up words. But this was part of a greater age, the end of the Enlightenment, the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, in which national romanticism was sweeping the European peoples. And that's part of this channel, the European peoples, our traditions, Western civilization. And we were part of that. We tried to create the prestige culture of our own to mold into a nation, and it wasn't a complete abysmal failure. The point is we tried, and we did a lot better than many nations did in the initial bit, certainly. But when it came to structuring ourselves politically and organizing politically, we were an utter failure. Let's be honest. But for his literature and encyclopedias and printing, the Welsh did amazingly well. And you see words coming into this epic, such as Trydan, for electricity, that William Owen Pugh fellow, who put together the Mavidian archaeology, which is, loads of old poetry, epic sagas, that kind of stuff. Very important. We have Welsh encyclopedia. It's really important. The early 1800s, late 1700s, up into the liberal era, the 1850s. The Holy Roman Empire was enormous in its day and age, important, even the relics that came after it. These two periods, the pre-Roman period in which the Mediterranean was blooming, but the Atlantic Ocean, the coast of that, we looked toward northern Spain, Brittany, trade with Ireland, northwestern Spain, Portugal. Those were our points of reference for the creation of our prestige culture materials and ideas. Even our early maps faced toward the morning sun. It's very different than further south in the Mediterranean. And certain words have survived, which indicate we had a different sense of what power and art and things for higher things were. And I think there's too much of a focus in Welsh study generally, in Celtic studies generally, on the common people, all of the social justice struggles. The things that made our culture is what people aspired to better their lives. Materialistic ambition, aspiration. Things that motivated people to do great things and create beautiful art. That is what shaped the Welsh language. Not a struggle against the oppression of some empire. We were devoutly loyal to Rome and very loyal to Her Majesty Queen Victoria at the height of the British Empire. That's just a fact. And I hope you see from those two examples the Mediterranean world blooming and the Holy Roman Empire in the 9th century on the Rhineland that created that Carolingian script and formulated new methods of tax and military structures which we did not have here. Many of the words we have which are not related to French, German, or English, those words come from epochs or eras or ages in which our prestige culture was not sucked in to the Rhineland or the Mediterranean. Whereas England's, Germany and France, they were. It's a beautiful day and you don't often see me in a t-shirt. I don't like to wear t-shirts that often, but I didn't want to iron another shirt just to go hiking up here. Anyway, some of you had asked for Welsh stuff, and I provided. Some of you had asked for going out and doing something outside, and I provided. So leave a super like, donate, join me on Patreon, subscribe, buy me a coffee. Diolch yn fawr iawn, thank you very much.